first match this weekend is against Seogui. There is no doubt that I will win the match.
세 명의 생각이 다 똑같은 것 같은데 그룹 예선만 통과하면 아마 우승할 수 있지 않을까 생각합니다.
I'm pretty confident I will win because I heard that he was called the Korean Pinpingho. I don't think he's gonna be able to beat the original. I think the lineups I bring this week still represent Pinpingho style pretty well. It actually used some of my deck building strategy which I designed like 2 years ago.
이거는 네개 덱이 거의 다 물고 물리는 상성이라서 밴을 뭘 하고 픽을 어느 순서로 꺼내느냐 이게 제일 중요할 것 같아요.
Many people think that I'm special for playing Shaman. The reason why I play Shaman is because I want to have my personal style, and it will make people think, "Wow, this is Pinpingho."
핑핑호가 줄서 안 들고 갈 것 같아서요. 그거는 제가 볼 때 핑핑호의 스타일이랑 안 맞다고 보거든요.
I think my past experience will certainly help me a little bit.
오히려 그런 쪽이 더 불리하지 않을까 생각하는데요. 그쪽이 더 정보가 많고 저는 상대적으로 정보가 없는 편이기 때문에 제가 좀 더 전략적으로 좀 더 유리하게 갖고 갈 수 있지 않을까 생각해 봅니다.
I don't think he will be intimidated by that, but I'll beat him anyway. To all my opponents this weekend, I have to say sorry. Maybe you should try again.
The original Pinpingho coming out with lots of confidence and swagger, as always. Welcome back, everybody. I'm TJ. This is Frodan. It's been a while, man. I'm excited to cast again.
It has. We chained TJ down to the sidebar because he was doing such a great job there.
For 10,000 years.
Long ago, TJ used to cast, and today the beast has been unleashed. Welcome back to the desk, TJ. I'm really happy to be able to cast. I'm really happy that we have this match coming up. I'm really excited for both of these players. One, because it's great to see familiar faces in a sea of newcomers, Pinpingho being one of them, but also because Seogui is also one of the hyped players from Korea. We asked guys like Kranich, who people are familiar with, going to BlizzCon 2 years in a row. He says this guy is probably the favorite to win it all.
Yeah, he said he's got a huge champion pool and coming out of a victory in OGN Masters in Korea in Season 4. So get on Twitter, though. Let us know who you guys think will win. You can tweet with the hashtag HCT and vote for either hashtag Pinpingho or hashtag Seogui. Pinpingho had a lot of, choice words saying that he's the original Pinpingho, and even though people call Seogui the Korean Pinpingho, there's nobody that can match him. So I'm really looking forward to it. So get out there and vote for who you think is going to take it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's just funny that they acknowledge that they look kind of similar in that capacity. They have the same, but do they play the same, TJ? I think there's some surprises in store because Pinpingho promised something pretty interesting, and Seogui, he's the one that's the tried and true. He plays very methodical. He doesn't really make a lot of mistakes, or at least so they claim. This is one of the biggest stages that he's played in yet, and I can't wait to meet the players.
All right, well, let's meet them indeed. The first player for the final match of the day, it is going to be Seogui.
Seogui comes from Korea and plays on a team called Aggressive. Is that an indication of this type of decks he's going to bring? Not exactly sure, but hyped by other players such as two-time BlizzCon finalist Kranich, saying he is the favorite, in his opinion, out of the pool to win it all.
Yeah, definitely. He has a gigantic deck pool, and he's played multiple archetypes across multiple classes in a lot of his matches, and just in his OGN win. So let's introduce his opponent. It is going to be Pinpingho.
Pinpingho, the Shaman God. At least that's what he called himself just a few months ago when he was qualified from Asia Pacific yet again for BlizzCon. This guy is definitely one of the best in his region, and even acknowledges that even if he isn't the best, he'll still win. This guy has a confidence that you'll never see in a lot of other players. And not only that, he also has experience competing in other events like the ESL Legendary Series and making a splash there as well.
The notorious PING, as they call him on the streets of Taiwan. They don't.
No one calls him that.
calls that. I call him that. And I'm going to keep calling him that.
Only one person in the history of the world has called him that.
And it was me.
It was you indeed.
Yeah.
Pinpingho comes in here as a player that people expect something from, but I think this might be one of the best technical matches that we'll see throughout the entire weekend. You can definitely tell that a few of the players are a little bit uncomfortable. I mean, Navi was even telling me, man, he's like, dude, I'm so nervous. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in the match. And, you know, it definitely felt like a little unfortunate for him based off the draws. But you can tell a guy like Pinpingho, he's just used to this by now. And I think that's going to play a big factor going into the series.
Yeah, and Seogui actually said in this interview, he said he thinks that the experience is actually a disadvantage because you get to see, you know, all of the matches that he's ever played. So let's take a look at the poll results from what you guys voted, and it looks like Pinpingho, he's taking the poll lead.
He is,
I'm
man.
not surprised.
The reality is Pinpingho is actually a very interesting character. I believe the chat really is fond of him just because he has great interviews.
Yes.
And he just kind of puts himself out there. You know what? He actually reminds me a lot of Trump in a way, of just Trump the player, of course, from Jeffrey.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to remind you of everybody of that fact. He reminds me of Trump of just like he's unabashedly himself and extremely confident about it, which makes him extremely charming as well.
Yeah,
I love that. It's super endearing.
Yeah. And he was saying that he didn't bring Shaman to this tournament because it's not that he only loves Shaman. It's that he just loves decks where he can put his own Pinpingho flair on them, where he can make the Pinpingho style come out in the deck. And he said he thinks he can do that with the decks that he brought to this tournament. So I'm really excited to see what kind of stuff he has in store with this deck lineup. And you can see Paladin, Warlock, Warrior are the decks that he's going to be playing this match with his Druid band.
Both sides, too. Seogui is a player who, characteristically, he actually benefits a lot more once the metagame is figured out. He's not necessarily an innovator. So what you're going to see is a player that tries to innovate, like Pinpingho, go up against a person who masters the standard way that you can play Hearthstone, the one that's the most optimized. So who's going to be able to be the win? Is it the creative artist or is it a person who's done one kick 10,000 times? Yeah,
and right now it seems like Seogi's environment, because the meta's been, even though it hasn't been stable, there's been a long time to figure out this meta. So we'll have to see. They've been able to sit and watch the Europe Championships, the Winter Championships, and the Americas Winter Championships, and sort of take note from there. So I'm really excited to see how this matchup's going to play out.
That's right. Similar lineups and apparently similar outfits. I mean, these guys, hey, it's a true mirror match, except for their country of origin. Let's go into game one. And already some differences. We see another Murloc Paladin. That is the second one of the day, up against the Warlock, which has Dark Bombs, implying that it's a more defensive control style.
Yeah, it could be Demon Handlock, traditional handlock. We can rule out Reno Warlock because of the double Dark Bomb. If you do run...
You sure, TJ?
Yes, I am.
Listen,
had to
there
think
might
about
be
that
some
one for a
people,
second.
I don't know who out there, that have experimented running two of cards in a list. However, it hasn't been that successful, and I completely agree. I think it might be a Demon Handlock.
And what the heck is this, Dan? We've seen two Murloc Paladins already today.
Yeah, Murloc Paladin's really interesting because it has such lopsided matchups, very similar to Freeze Mage. Freeze Mage can sometimes dominate an archetype really hard. Looking at Zoo, for example. But it also loses really hard to Control Warrior. In a similar fashion, Murloc Paladin also struggles against decks that can put on a lot of aggression against it very fast and then push it out of the game so you can't heal it in time. For example, Druid. But if Seogi's going to be banning Druid, it feels like it opens up a much wider range of potential decks that he's favored against.
Yeah, and it's a deck where you can come into a matchup. If you're super confident in what you think the decks that your opponents will bring are, then you could confidently bring Murloc Paladin. And you said earlier, Seogi's one of those people who really trusts in figuring out the meta and trusting in their self to know exactly how the meta is. So not surprised to see it. There's a couple different types of the Murloc Paladin. I think we're gonna see the differences between Matsun's Murloc Paladin and Seogi's Murloc Paladin, because this one looks to be a little bit more defensive and not quite as board-centric like the shielded minibot version that we saw from Matsun.
Yeah. Now, there are some variations within the Paladin, TJ. Have you been able to play this deck at all? Like, the different variations of what people like to play?
Yeah. There's some players that like to play with very strong curved out creatures like Shielded Minibot, much of battle on Dr. Boom. There's some players
it's my personal favorite version.
Yeah, and there's some players that like to play just straight up defensive, where you go complete cycle with Doomsayers early on and full heal package. Double heal bot, double land hand. So
Yeah, even cards like Humility sometimes.
Humility,
make an appearance.
yeah.
Well, this has been a little bit slow to start things off. I think both these players take an opportunity to really milk in the time that they have now. Seogui, again, he's a player that will be playing a lot of the decks that is straightforward and refined, except that's what I was told. However, Murloc Paladin is not really that straightforward. The deck has a lot of small nuances, and it's very punishing if you make mistakes, just because of the way decisions end up compounding on each other. If you use your AoE a little bit too early, like Equality and Pyromancer, then all of a sudden you're going to be in big trouble if your opponent's been playing against it and they recognize it. Plus, now the secret is kind of out on both sides. Pinpingho said, okay, you didn't play anything turn 1, and then you play Loot Hoarder, so I know what you are. Yeah. More of a slower Paladin. So he's like, well, you didn't do anything but tap, so I feel like I know what kind of Warlock to expect. At least he knows that it's not a Zoo Warlock approach, which probably makes him a little bit happier because as the deck slows down, the more Murloc Paladin gets better. Yeah, he still really can't pinpoint exactly what type of control style Warlock it is because he hasn't seen anything. A lot of times, Reno Warlock will have more often than not plays to make before turn 4, so you might be able to rule that out, especially after next turn. But still nerve-wracking. And classically, this type of Paladin, if we look back all the way to like the ESGN days, which is about the last time that we saw two different control decks that were Warlock and Paladin, the Paladin had the advantage back then, but I don't think it's necessarily the case this time around. Well, I still think I lean towards the Paladin side. Yeah. One of the things that you have to just look at is Equality gets the final say. No matter how big of a board that you build as Pinpingho, you can build the world's biggest giants. Let's say hypothetically each giant was even like a 20-20. You can still Equality them because they need a turn to attack. Now, Pinpingho, on the other hand, what does he have that really pushes it over the edge? It seems like some of these decks run Doom Guards as a way to burst, but it's not like a Leroy Faceless Manipulator or an Arcane Golem Faceless Manipulator with power overwhelming buffs. Those are the ways you can actually push the Paladin out of the game. If you just give the Paladin a lot of time, what it's going to do is it's going to clear the board, and then draw a ton of cards, and then finally play anything can happen over 2 turns, and you can't stop it. Sometimes you can't even stop it over 1 turn because unlike Control Warrior, which can hold on to the brawls and hold on to the Sludge Belchers until the end of the game when anything is played, the Demon Handlock really just doesn't have tools. Unless they have a huge Shadow Flame, they can't really remove even just the Murlocs from the first anything can happen off the board. And the only defensive tools they have is, a Sludge Belcher and potentially a Mal'Ganis, which usually aren't enough to, like you said, block that second one. Pretty tough turn here from Seogui. He has a lot of options. 4 mana basically gives him full flexibility to address this. If he uses Aldor Peacekeeper onto the dragon, or sorry, the Twilight Drake, it actually does make it so that you can't silence it, and then you would injure yourself. Yeah. However, you're playing off curve, and it doesn't feel exactly the best use of your mana. Considering that next turn you have even more access to cool plays with Old Murkai and even the Bluegill Warrior. Yeah. And depending on how the board builds as well, getting the True Silver Champion out now allows you to adjust the board even better the following turn. Yeah, and it's sort of the same deal with like Control Warrior in this matchup, where you really have to be super conservative with your removal. Because even though you do have a decent amount of removal, you still don't want to use it on these smaller amounts of creatures. So getting that True Silver Champion early, start hitting away with it, not being afraid to take that damage early on in the game is definitely the right course of action for this deck. 2 Mortal Coils, allowing you to keep the Twilight Drake safe. I'm down for that. I think one thing that Pinpingho is considering, though, is does he end up using his mana to play, say, the Void Walker? The Void Caller. The Void Caller would pull out cards like Mal'Ganis, which early game pressure against this Paladin is actually very good if you're able to push it out. However, he also recognizes that he can get more mileage out of this Twilight Drake. So it's a trade-off. What is he willing to do? Play the Void Caller, or is he going to play a little bit slower? Yeah, it's going to decide to sort of space out those threats, and maybe he doesn't want Mal'Ganis out this early because he doesn't want to put all of his eggs in that one basket, or put all of his eggs on the one board. Yeah, basket board, same difference, TJ. Indeed. Seogui, I mean, he has access to plays here. I think it wouldn't be bad to even attempt to draw cards after you use Blue Warrior to kill into the Twilight Drake. But then you also can develop the Acolyte of Pain. Both of them are pretty valid. The goal is still pretty straightforward from Seogui. What he wants to do is just control the state of the board and trade your Murlocs and draw cards. If you can do those 3 things, you're in a really good spot.
Yeah, and it seems like he's definitely getting the good end of his draw. Sometimes you can get stuck with the clunky cards in your hand early on. You want to draw your Murlocs before anything. You want to draw like your removals before your heals and your card draw before your heals. So he definitely in a good spot. I'm sure Seogi's happy. And you know, Pinpingho, this matchup can be tough to navigate for the Demon Handlock just because you have to think so far in ahead. Every time you play a card, you have to think, is this a card that I'll need later on to deal with, you know, anything can happen, or to make sure that I can kill my opponent before he plays anything can happen? So definitely a super tough matchup. It's sort of an uphill climb.
I'm looking at Lotheb being one of the key cards of being able to shut that valve off, at least for 1 turn. So we'll see if that ends up being the case here. Seogui, now that he sees Void Caller, probably a little bit unhappy. He's like, well, I don't know if I should attack it. This is why Void Caller is one of my favorite cards in the game, TJ, because there's so much tension on the board immediately. If I kill this Void Caller, will something be brought out? And if so, can I even deal with it? Should I ignore the Void Caller because of this, or should I address it now so that way he can't pick up a good trade with it? Very, very complex card, and I love it. May it rest in peace.
Yeah, there's so many different. Let's have a moment of silence.
Not yet. He's very much alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. But definitely a great card. Peacekeeper allows you to draw multiple cards off this Acolyte of Pain.
It's bringing me back
to the control styles.
Yeah, it used to be a common strategy. You know, run that Acolyte of Pain with the Outdoor Peacekeeper. It's such the ultimate synergy between those 2 cards.
Yep. I like Seogui just taking his time here. He's not playing the Murloc Warrior just because he happened to draw it. When you're under rope pressure, you might feel like, oh, 3 mana, I drew a card, play it. But he realizes that Murloc Warrior and Old Murkai is a 5 damage removal spell. Sorry, not spell, but like a combination you can attack with. And then you might even have an opportunity to remove a threat like the Ancient Watcher. Cards like Ancient Watcher still present a big of a logistical problem. It can be Shadow Flamed, it can be taunted, and you have to get through it. And ultimately, you still want to control the state of the board, so you don't want that thing bullying people.
Exactly, and a lot of times you don't want to push them too low, especially in this matchup. So sometimes when you don't have things to do, you might as well just kill that Ancient Watcher. So
sure. Well, going back to Pinpingho's hand, how does he want to control the state of the board here? He's still a few turns away from feeling like his opponent can play anything. And so I feel like his hand probably is completely dependent if he wants to develop the Sludge Belcher, keep that Lotheb for a while. If he's aiming to attack his Acolyte, he can also force an overdraw, which is pretty cute. If you get them burn 1, anything can happen, that might decide the game.
Yeah, and we won't see the burn card until the beginning of next turn, but it could be a big deal, and nice sequencing there, knowing Mal'Ganis is the only demon in hand. It's an anti-kill bot, which, you know, that healing might make a difference in the long run, but it just seems like Seogui has so many resources right now.
Yeah.
It will probably be inconsequential.
It's, you know, the value of the coin in this matchup actually does have relevance because you can play a quality Pyromancer and then the coin. And then, of course, that gives you a little bit of slight board control, especially when you see 2 Mortal being played. However, I think Seogui at this point just wants to stay on the draw cards plan. Just kill this Mal'Ganis. The only thing is that Mal'Ganis by itself is still really threatening, and yet you're using one of your 2 equalities.
Yeah.
That feels really bad.
Yeah, it ends up being a pretty big deal at the moment, but Seogui is going to be able to draw further in his deck. There's second equality in both anythins. So right now, currently, only 1 Bluegill Warrior, I believe, is the only Murloc that's been played. So we're still a while away from seeing explosive Murloc turns. And I really like this proactive Doomsayer from Seogui.
Yeah, it gives him initiative onto the board, which is what Pinpingho doesn't want to see here. If he spends, he actually can't spend his entire turn removing it. He only can do 6 damage from the hand. So I suppose all he can do here is to antique heal bot. His hand is too full, and he knows his opponent has access to a lot of healing. So I presume his best option is to play the antique healbot and just pass, which feels clunky to say the least.
That gives Seogui complete initiative. He can do whatever he pleases. And lay on hands going into turn 8. Now that seems like a very enticing opportunity for him to go for it.
Would he? I think he'd be at full cards, so I think he's just going to play the Murlocs. You're right if he had the opportunity to. But at the same time, you don't mind taking board control. You're putting him at 19, which is not super threatening for the Molten Giants.
And with both anything can happens, you know, you can start getting these Murlocs out there. Even just with the 3 Murlocs that will have been killed by the time that anything can happen is played. Right. the Demon Handlock already puts themselves at pretty low amounts of health.
We've seen 1 Bluegill Warrior. We've seen these 2 Murlocs.
Yep.
I don't believe we've seen anything else.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so that would mean that it's just a 10 damage burst for the first one. But, wait, what are you groaning for, TJ?
10 damage. It's so good.
10 damage for 10 mana. It's like Pyroblast.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that, TJ?
It's completely balanced. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. But the second wave, TJ. Second wave, TJ could do upwards to 20. Oh, sorry. No, because the second Warlock War Leader, I think it was like about 28 damage, which is insane.
Yeah. It'd be 12 plus. Yeah, something like that.
12 plus, yeah.
I was gonna say 14, just because each of the were. No, yeah, you're right.
TJ, if there's anything that I've learned in my time of casting Hearthstone is don't try to do math.
Especially anything can happen math, because I've been in some really rough situations with anything can happen math.
For sure. Well, the fact that he has humility can also answer this giant, or so he thinks, because there is an ability to put additional pressure on.
Yeah.
I do like this attack, by the way. You want your Murlocs to die, and you can get that attack in before you can silence it. I wonder how good that Emperor Thorson is, by the way.
I mean, it's just reducing, creatures. And how much do you want to extend? What it's going to do is allow him to make a bigger turn with Lotheb. Like, put more stuff on the board and sort of protect it with Lotheb. But now that it's getting towards turn 10, it really doesn't protect it, because he can still play Wild Pyromancer and Equality. So it allows him to do that, but other than that, it's not that effective.
Yeah, it's a good point, because Wild Pyromancer Equality is 9 mana, so how do you actually block it? Unless you have Bran Bronzebeard and Lotheb, which isn't very common in a deck like this. Dr. Boom's not bad. It's still minion pressure, and maybe you can even force out your opponent to react to this. I really like this from Pinpingho. When you ignore the Murloc, he can't kill itself.
Yeah.
And old Murkai only wants to die right now.
He does. Very solid play from Pinpingho. Spacing on his threats, too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And, the fact that he's understanding the situation, only 2 Murlocs have died. Old Murkai itself can't really trade into it right now. And he says, I can tap. I can get away with it. That's super bold to tap in this situation when you're recognizing, like, well, am I just going to die? But the Paladin deck still doesn't have legitimate burst yet.
Yeah, Pinpingho wants to see that second equality. That's what he's looking for here. Because that's going to give him sort of that, window to just completely flood the board with as much stuff as he possibly can. And we'll see if Seogui can navigate this turn in a way where he doesn't have to use it.
I must move quickly.
He still has the Outdoor Peacekeeper, so he can sort of nullify the Dr. Boom, and I think that's what he's going to go with. He's going to play it patiently, and I really like this. That second equality has so much value, especially in this matchup.
Yeah. So many neutered threats with one attack. And of course, that old Murkai just wants to end it. Of course, I apologize, by the way. I forgot the second Murkai would come back, which adds another 14 damage. So it's basically like about 40 damage or so
roughly
that would come in, assuming that you're playing the back-to-back anything can happens.
Yeah.
And of course, that can amplify even more if you draw one single more Murloc here to add to that.
Yeah.
So Pinpingho here, he has some legitimate bursts from the hand, Doomguard and Dark Bombs. But how does he piece it together here? Does he play Lotheb to shut things off right now? I mean, one thing that's interesting, too, is Lotheb does end up creating a board where, like, the Paladin's also giving up a lot, too.
Yeah, that's very true. But, you have to sort of realize that the Paladin doesn't really care about giving a lot of things up. And sometimes they're happy about giving things up because it opens up a lot of opportunities for them to keep pushing in. Once again, spacing out his threats, he realized that even if he plays Lothep, his board can still get removed. And I wonder if this is just going to be a pass from this turn. Oh, he actually is going to play it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the Lothep here is to try to shut it off, and he's going to force Seogui to play the Wild Pyromancer quality if he has it, which he does. And if he does play it, then he can just respond right back with an Upper Thorson and taunt that, and then continue the wave of taunts.
Yeah.
I do like this. And he's also setting up a condition of if you don't happen to draw this board clear, then you lose.
Yeah, he just wins.
Okay, so it consumes all of his turn. Old Murkai has finally unlocked life achievement. Die one time.
Yeah. But now he's going to have to die probably a couple more times before this game's over. Poor little fella. But yeah, now Pinpingho has complete initiation onto this board. He now knows that both equalities are gone, both Wild Pyromancers are gone. He knows that if an anything can happen is played, it would only be 10 damage.
Right.
So he is healthy. He can afford to not taunt up this turn because he's been keeping track.
Yeah, this is huge. Now he can set up many taunts next turn. Bluegill Warrior, a little bit too late to the party because that would have added, let's see, the first Murlocs would be 4/4, so it'd be 14 damage. No, 15 damage because the Murkai gets an extra damage.
Yeah.
That would have been it. Now, what Seogui can do is play the first anything can happen and once again send the Murlocs to their death.
Yes.
Which is, again, a little bit tragic to some people, but it ends up being Seogi's win condition. He can also just play it a little bit slower. Play True Silver, play Bluegill, and then, kind of take it like piece by piece and let yet another Murloc die.
Yeah.
This is a very tense situation because Seogui realizes that he's not playing with the most health either. It's not exactly a very comfortable feeling to be at 14 against a power of 9 on the board.
Yeah, he does have the heal bod, but he knows that the second heal bod is non-existent now since it was burned earlier in the game with a heads-up play from Pinpingho. So he's going to play it and get that Bluegill Warrior killed. So this is pretty much as expected. And he's just going to try and push a little bit of damage and set up for those anything can happens.
Sure. Although he already used both of the qualities, and Pinpingho picks up a Molten Giant. That's a huge wave or wall of taunts.
He can play so much stuff too because everything was reduced from the Emperor Thorsan. So he can just flood the board with pretty much everything.
He can play
lots of taunts.
The Sludge Belcher, he can play the Molten and taunt it up with the Defender of Argus and call it a day. I don't know if he wants to tap, but maybe he feels even more inclined to be greedy, but I don't think greed is necessary here. In fact, it is the root of all evil, according to some teachings.
Greed is not going to really get punished here either. So how is that he going to get punished for just barfing his hand onto the board? He's not. There's no qualities.
Yep, and Seogui paying a huge price for not having any of the qualities here, not being very patient. And as in contrast with Pinpingho, who's been excellent so far with, like you said, spacing out all of his threats.
Yeah.
And now Seogui has to really think, if he plays the first anything can happen, how much removal will he have? Will he even stay alive? And the answer might be no, because if even just the Molten Giant survives, Pinpingho will Dark Bomb.
Yeah, and he can sort of double up on the Bluegill Warrior. He can trade it in and then play anything can happen, so let's get re-summoned. That's exactly what he does, and I want to think twice about that, old Murkai. Yeah, it's probably the first thing you want to attack with.
He's just dead on board still.
Yeah.
Oh no, okay. So some of the trades are a little bit awkward. He's losing power on the old Murkai. I think Seogi's realizing the writing on the wall here. He's going to try his best to stabilize, but he can't even stay alive against what's on board. That's going to wrap up game number 1. Wow. An excellent chess match between Pinpingho, sending a strong message to his Korean opponent.
Yeah, cold-blooded killer Pinpingho. Pinpingho actually played Murloc Paladin in the preliminary for Taiwan, so he's got a lot of experience with the deck. You could tell that he navigated that demon handlock extremely well in that matchup and ends up coming out with a win. I really enjoyed that.
Whoa, Seogui looks crushed.
Yeah.
Dang. It's you know, it's one thing to kind of just be like, well, I lost, man, that feels bad, but you know, it looks like he's getting overwhelmed by emotion right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we
Either
talked
that
about,
or he's really examining how good his shampoo was this morning.
he's trying to make it so that he doesn't look quite as much like Pinpingho in this matchup. But we talked earlier. We talked earlier about how Seogui is really well respected among the Korean scene. But let's get to know Seogui a little bit better. We had a chance to sit down and talk with him and have a few words.
저는 25살 신동주고 부산에서 태어나서 열심히 지금 하스스톤 플레이하고 있습니다. 한국에 있는 창원이라는 저구만 도시에서 지금 살고 있고요. 창원은 다른데 한국에서 가장 노래방이 많은 데라서 노래방 한번 가야 되지 않을까 생각합니다. 저는 잘 안 가는데요. 저는 집에서 많이 부릅니다. 스트림할 때 많이 부르거든요. 날 뜨면 전부 내 탓이지 뭐 마치 주인인 것처럼. 제가 1, 2, 3 다 참가해서 예선전에서 초기에 떨어졌거든요. 그래서 이번에 안 되면은 그냥 하스스톤을 가볍게 하는 걸로 바꿀까 아니면 아예 포기할까 생각하다가 올라가서 예선전을 또 그 전부터 한국에서 유명한 실시오가 있었는데 어떻게 그분이랑도 해서 이기고 4강 때 스틸로라는 친구를 만났을 때 그 친구가 중학교 때부터 오래 알던 사이였는데 아직 4대3이라는 접전 끝에 이겼는데 그때 가장 기분이 좋았고 사람들 평가가 좀 재미가 없을 것 같다, 실력이 상대적으로 떨어질 것 같다, 뭐 이런 평가가 있었는데 제가 이때까지 보여주는 것들이 작기 때문에 제가 제일 약하다고 생각할 수도 있는데 하스스톤이 랭크만으로 결정되는 게임이 아니거든요. 저는 딱히 딱 어떤 덱을 해야 된다, 나의 스타일은 이거다 이런 게 없는 것 같거든요. 모든 덱을 잘하는 수준까지 플레이할 수 있다고 생각하기 때문에 전략면에서 제가 좀 더 유리하지 않나 생각합니다. 앞으로 보여드릴 모습을 생각해서 제가 제일 약한 사람은 아니라고 보여주면 될 것 같아요. 저는 석입니다. 아시아 최강은 한국이라는 것을 보여드리도록 하겠습니다.
Seogi's just a calculated player who just likes to figure out the meta. And he said he doesn't have his style. He just wants to play what he thinks is best. And not working out for him so far, but you know, I like that type of attitude where he really just wants to find out what's best, and he doesn't really care what people think about the decks that he brings.
Yeah, I think it's very clear, you know, the fact that he's willing to sing on stream too, and just put a mouse out there. That he doesn't really care what people think. And you know what? Honestly, like I said, that confidence, it's sorely missing from a lot of players. So props to him.
Yeah, props to him. And guys, let us get on Twitter, get on social media. Let us know what you think. You can tweet at Play Hearthstone about Seogui singing. Yeah. Let us know what you think about Pinpingho's swag. Get on Twitter, get on Facebook, at Play Hearthstone, facebook.com/Play Hearthstone. Use the hashtag HCT. Of course, as you can see, we've been featuring the tweets on stream. So who do you want to win this matchup?
It's a little bit tough. I think both these guys. You know what? Korea's won a lot today, and I feel like
let's be honest. Korea's won a lot forever.
Yeah, it's true. Korea is doing very well this tournament, and rightfully so. They're definitely one of the underrated regions of Hearthstone. People look at Asia. They primarily look at China, you know, because they have so many top players, and their region is so huge. However, Korea has a really decent amount of players. Look at Steelo. You look at Dawn, for example, who won WCA last year. And you even know like Sosiho, like some of these players are pretty good. Yeah. And it's about time they made a splash. However, Pinpingho comes in here as one of the Taiwan stalwarts. Him, Tom60229, Roger, these guys have been playing for so long and always getting to the very ends of the tournament. It doesn't surprise me at all to see Pinpingho doing well here. Yeah,
Pinpingho, though, that big tournament win has eluded him. He's placed very highly at a lot of events, and he's qualified for a lot of major and premier events, including the World Championship last year. So he's definitely looking for that win, and he does not lack the confidence to do it. And we've talked about Seogui before, but after talking with, Papa Smithy and Doa and some of the Korean players, they tend to think Korea as a region suffers from a lack of creativity. They just like to play the meta decks, and Seogui just sort of exemplifies that type of play. He's the Korean Hearthstone player in a nutshell.
Okay, so we have on ourselves
yes.
a good old Klazen Murgoloff.
The Murgoloff.
A Murloc Paladin versus a Murloc Paladin. The mirror, I'm not gonna lie here. The mirror is often a pile of chaos, TJ.
It's brutal to watch and to play.
Think of it very similar to Freeze Mage mirrors,
Yes.
where a lot of the plays don't seem very intuitive. Remember, cards like Murloc War Leader buff all Murlocs. Murkai has plus damage for each Murloc on the battlefield, including your opponents. So if you play Murloc War Leader, your opponent might just bluegill right into it, and you lose all board control for less mana. So you out-tempoed yourself. These are some small nuances that, at first, are not very intuitive. TJ looks like he wants to say something.
And anything can happen summons any Murloc that has died that game.
Exactly.
So, including your opponents. So some people have trouble keeping track of their own Murlocs. Now they have to keep track of their own plus their opponents.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
It's not impossible.
For me, it's impossible, Dan.
There are a couple of rules with some corollaries. The first is that you don't want to be the person to play the first anything can happen. Because if the person clears it and they play a second anything can happen, you're in trouble. Now, there's the caveat to that is if you can play anything can happen, and then you have a Korean list that happens to play, Lotheb, for example, then that does actually give you a chance to strike back. Sometimes you can play anything can happen twice in a row against your opponent, and he can't respond. He has to just keep clearing, and then you win. So the matchup is a very tight one. There's a lot of tension going back and forth, and of course we're starting to see some separation too. Pinpingho plays the Muster for Battle version, which gives him some interesting dynamics with cards like Solemn Vigil, because he might be able to trade a little bit more effectively on his turn, and thus be able to draw more.
Yeah. So we're definitely going to see the two styles that Murloc Paladin clash in. This matchup can. You talked a little bit about it, but there's two different ways that this matchup usually plays out. And one is that super long game that we talked about, where some of the plays tend to get pretty unintuitive, and you're afraid to play anything can happen because you have to do the exact math if you want to win. But then there's some times where, there's so many Murlocs drawn and played in the early game that the first person that plays anything can happen just wins. Sort of similar to Freeze Mage, where a lot of times it comes down to the first person that gets that Alex Straws off, the first person that can pop that first block wins. So there are a couple different ways, but it gets a little dicey sometimes.
Well, this is already interesting to me because Pinpingho has commanding board position for now. Seogui's going to be forced to consecrate this, I believe. Unless he feels safe enough to just develop True Silver Champion, but you want to control the state of the board. Although, actually, he doesn't have to because he has Pyromancer as well. This is interesting. He's got a few different options now that I really analyze it. The thing about Consecration, too, is that it is a really good access to board clear.
Yeah.
So I think he doesn't feel that under that much pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, over on Pinpingho's side, he doesn't actually have much card draw outside of the Solemn Vigil. He did pick up Lay on Hands, which is pretty good. Don't be surprised to see him just, take it a little bit slower.
Yeah, just keep hero power and keep putting on pressure. And sometimes his chip damage can matter later in the game, especially if a lot of Murlocs aren't played. And again, that's where you have to sort of do that math. You don't really want to play Murlocs later in the game if you know that your opponent has the initiative on the anything can happen, and you're low enough to where if you play another Murloc and it dies, you'll give your opponent lethal on the following turn.
Would you just trade the coin in to get a draw off your Acolyte? Play Pyromancer coin with the Acolyte and coin it?
Yeah, and it's also a clean board clear. You know that you'll have an activator later in the game. If things get sticky and if you need to use, if you pick up that equality. So I definitely like that. It also allows you to, not that you would use a True Silver Champion anyway, but you get a good board state. You have a True Silver Champion. You have the board, so. Seems pretty good.
Yeah, board aggression is not exactly ideal sometimes. Again, it's very situational based. Sometimes your hand just says you have a lot of Murlocs and you play it, but both these guys have relatively passive hands. We have the first anything can happen, but like we said, first anything doesn't guarantee victory at all.
Yeah.
There are a couple of important damage thresholds as well. When you've played all 5 Murlocs, assuming those are the 5s that the normal ones, 2 Bluegills, 2 War Leaders, and a Murkai, it is 22 damage, but like you said, if you just get one single Murloc in addition to that, it's pushing 29+.
Yeah.
Which can be just game ending.
Usually game ending.
Usually game ending, but the players will be wise to avoid that.
Yeah. And I imagine playing this deck, you get a good sense of what your opponent's supposed to be doing.
The first Murloc has appeared.
Uh-oh.
It is old Murkai.
And so it begins.
Well, Pinpingho has an answer to it with the True Silver Champion. He also, let's see, what else can he develop behind it? I was thinking about playing just a hero power, but he also has the ability to develop other stuff too. The question is, how does he want to set up his lay on hands turn too? He's definitely going to be playing card draw when he can.
Yeah. If he wants to, he can sacrifice in Bluegill Warrior to take out the 1/1.
It feels like you don't want to do that because Bluegill Warrior also can act as removal. Not to mention you strengthen the case of your opponent playing anything. One thing that is important to note is if Pinpingho hits turn 10, and let's say in the hypothetical situation where enough Murlocs die, then he might be able to pressure before his opponent because he'll hit turn 10 before Seogui does.
Yeah, and he knows that Seogui has thrown away the coin, so I don't know if it's going to get to that point because it doesn't feel like enough Murlocs will have been played by the time we get to that point. But again, even just playing anything can happen with just a few Murlocs, you know, just 2 or 3 or 4 can be enough because your opponent has to remove those, you know, to not succumb to the pressure. And they also have to worry about, well, if I remove it, I'm just going to give him lethal. So it becomes a tough situation. And
I have a feeling I'm going to need a pen, TJ, to keep track of everything.
I got you covered, Dan.
You have a pen?
I do.
Oh, he does. Ah, you got a pen. So, because the thing is, keeping track of the Murlocs will be really important because it feels like Seogui has to be aggressive here. If your opponent gives you the board to be pressuring slightly with an anything can happen, I don't think I mind this. Because I think if you pass and your opponent gets a free lay on hands, you essentially just gave up a lot of tempo to your opponent.
Yeah, so it's just one Murkai that's died.
And, well, Bluegill's now here.
And a Bluegill. Well. So right now, let me count. 2 damage.
Well, 5 actually, if it dies and he gets revived. But I get what you're saying.
Ha! Can never get it right.
Math is hard. Math is hard. Not for these guys though. Pinpingho, he's got the ability to just lay on hands. I think he's debating if he wants to swing with the weapon, and if so, at what. The common thing would be to swing at the Elder Peacekeeper. You not only avoid killing the Murloc, but it's better stats.
Yeah.
He's opting instead, looks like he wants to play Wild Pyromancer and draw cards. So he addresses the board. This is pretty cute play as well. He's only drawing 2, but you know, the anything can happen is still a pretty good card to draw.
Yeah. And it's one way that you can get blown out of the game if you just never draw your anythings.
Okay.
Because then you can never put on the pressure. Now, a lay on hands for Seogui, so he's going to draw as well.
Another Bluegill Warrior. So at this point, Seogui has to choose if he wants to swing with his weapon, but I don't think he feels incredibly threatened. So he does end up passing, and that gives Pinpingho initiative to finally play his lay on hands. But the problem is he has a Wild Pyromancer on board. So he actually cornered himself in a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think it really matters at this point with those 2 creatures. Especially since, I mean, I guess applying the pressure is always good, but wow. So he's actually going to wait another turn.
I think he might consider playing the Murlocs. If he plays the Murlocs, he attacks for 4 to the face. Then, no, you only have 1 War Leader out.
Yes.
If your opponent clears the board.
So at that point, if he had played that, if your opponent clears, you have 2 Bluegills, 1 Murkai, and 1 War Leader played total.
Right, that's 15 damage.
Yes.
And if you can put him down to 22 right now. So you'd be 7 short.
Yeah.
Also, the True Silver Champion heals too.
Yeah. It just doesn't seem like it's worth it.
Yeah, you know, Pinpingho might even just play the heal bot then, if he doesn't feel like doing it. Okay, so he's just saying, this is the board, deal with it. And I think Pinpingho is really regretting the choice of playing the Pyromancer, considering that they lay on hands.
Yeah, it seemed like a cute play at the time, but he could have played the Solemn Vigil without the Pyromancer, or he could have just held on to it to try and use it as a board removal. He could have even just given up the Pyromancer and gone for a lay on hands last turn, because now it's going to be tough for him to find a turn to do that, especially since Seogui's just drawn so much over the past couple turns that he's bound to have enough stuff to start pressuring.
Does Seogui play this Bluegill Warrior? He has an anything can happen. This would be the second Bluegill Warrior. And now Pinpingho realizes, well, how do I deal with this? Oh, interesting. He has Doomsayer. That might encourage him to lay on hands of Doomsayer. Does he have enough cards to get away with that? He has 8 cards. He'd be dumping 2, so that is reasonable play. He can lay on hands first, evaluate, and then play the Doomsayer.
Yeah.
And then the Doomsayer activates on his turn. So it's like he gets the initiative of playing anything can happen off of it. However, I think Pinpingho also has to keep in mind that Seogui gets like, if he can answer this, say he plays Keeper of Oldemon or some other card to easily kill it, then he's giving Seogui more proactive
or even
measures
just
to develop.
Like he has a Consecrate too, so he does have a way to deal with the Doomsayer if he wants to.
Yeah, there's many ways to deal with it. You can actually kill off your own Murloc too by playing a Pyromancer and a Humility, for example, and then using like the Humility as like AOE to kill it off.
Yeah.
Very cute stuff overall. It really depends on how Seogui wants to distribute his cards. I think if he does, he can also draw with the Solemn Vigil, but that also kills off the Pyromancer. So awkward. Is he going to use a quality here? He feels like he can't get better use out of it immediately. That's going to allow him to play the Solemn Vigil for 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a pretty expensive Solemn Vigil still. And he's not exactly free to play any other card after it.
He still has a couple cards to play, like Wild Pyromancer. He can even just play the Outdoor Peacekeeper on the board as a 3/3.
Yeah.
Because there aren't too many targets in this deck.
It's true.
Where you're going to want an Outdoor.
It's a good point. Pinpingho, I mean, he's like, this is a reasonable amount of pressure, but again, you're not going to want to play Murlocs into this at all. I wonder if he plays Dr. Boom, because the thing about the Muster for Battle list is that it plays a lot more minions on curve, like you said, so you can stabilize the board and then leverage those minions and that did damage with Dr. Boom to maybe curve out into a stronger anything can happen.
Yeah.
This was a list that was popularized by Colento because he felt like the original list played by guys like Neville's was too combo-oriented or dog and not like enough sturdiness. That's why he even plays Zombie Chow, which is counterintuitive to a combo deck.
Yeah, even like Strife Crow played the slower version, the version that Seogui's running. So it's kind of funny that both of those guys, teammates with such polarizing styles of the same deck.
Sure. Again, very meticulous to avoid playing the Murlocs. Right now, again, by our count, anything can happen. Should spawn 8 damage.
8 damage!
A whole whopping 10 mana, 8 damage.
So how do you become the first player that plays the anything can happen?
Oh, so one of the things that you actually can do is chain your threats, so that way he has to answer it. So you have think of it similar to if you can leverage your board in the Freeze Mage Mirrors to put on a little bit of pressure to force action and get advantage that way. There is a chance that the matchup just goes to Fatigue, and then you wait to Fatigue, and you just go for the burst damage that way too.
Yeah.
Because remember, they're drawing through their decks pretty considerable amount as well.
Yeah.
So right now, Pinpingho's biggest concern is how to get past cards like a Sludge Belcher, and he can just use an Equality, for example, because he has 2 of them.
Yeah,
it's more than reasonable.
Does have the Solemn Vigil as well. It looks like actually Seogui's running out of cards. Yeah, 6 cards remaining. Seogui at 10.
Another thing to consider too is that if you have 2 anythings can happens, which neither of them do, you can put pressure on the board first, know that they can't kill you. If you can set up a situation where anything can happen and they can't use it right back at you to kill you, then you can use a second one. So right now, I think in Pinpingho's mind, he wants to make sure that he can chain and anything can happen twice to make sure to guarantee to do above 30 damage.
Yeah.
Because if you have 6 minions of Murlocs, almost any combination will guarantee a 1-turn kill as long as there's no taunts on the board. But we're still only halfway there. We have 3 minions, and you need Murloc, War Leaders, and another Murkai.
Well, they're sitting and waiting in the hand, just waiting to be played. But it's super risky to just throw them out there.
So if you play Murloc War Leader and push for... Okay, well, I guess not that much.
Yeah. Push for 1.
Well, I mean, the reality is, if he plays for Murloc War Leader and forces his opponent to address it, he still has a True Silver Champion as well.
Move quickly.
That means it is upwards to 20 damage, if assuming he can hit with like a token as well.
Yeah.
It's not like a danger zone for either player. You can see they're in the 20s.
Yeah.
And this is the second anything can happen from Pinpingho. So how does he choose to play this? If he plays...
His Murlocs will get buffed by Seogui's War Leader.
Right.
But also... Oh, no, that was the only War Leader that was played. So Pinpingho won't have a War Leader. So he doesn't have to worry about Seogui's War Leader getting buffed from his War Leader.
But the problem is Seogui has a preemptive board. So if he plays Anything Can Happen, and say he trades into it, Seogui just plays his Anything Can Happen and destroy Pinpingho.
Yeah.
So now Pinpingho probably will consider clearing the board first somehow, except he doesn't have Consecration or Pyromancer. He's got this really annoying slime in the way that he might have to use his own Murloc to clear and then True Silver Champion.
And if he plays Bluegill Warrior and kills off the Murloc War Leader, that would have been 3 Bluegills, a Murkai, and a War Leader played. Is that enough to kill him?
Oh, he just draws Dr. Boom a little bit too late. So he's playing it even slower right now, and I can completely respect this because he knows if he plays the Murlocs with his opponent having the board, he's in trouble. Seogui has 8 damage showing on board, plus if he plays Anything Can Happen here, that's 15 damage. So
23 damage he has max.
23. It's not enough. So I guess you can still just play Sludge Belcher. Your opponent clearly showed difficulty of doing something last turn, so I don't mind playing the Sludge Belcher and the heal bot here.
And that damage adds up, and he's getting in the damage from these creatures this turn as well, so it's starting to look pretty good for him. Just having that initiative on the board, it ends up being huge in this matchup, it seems.
And if my calculations are correct, oh, he's choosing the pass. Okay, so he chooses the pass, meaning that he's afraid of overextending onto the board. And Pinpingho is going to kill this Murloc War Leader, which means he has 15 damage right back through to Anything Can Happen. Okay, so Dr. Boom is his best chance to develop.
Yeah.
I think he might even consider... No, he can't play another Murloc.
Yeah,
if he plays another Murloc, he dies.
He's dead. He's dead, yeah. So right now, Seogui will have 23 damage once again. Since he has the 8 damage represented on board, plus it'll be the same damage because the War Leader will be resummoned, which would be 15 from the Anything Can Happen.
Right.
So he can't play another Murloc because he can just trade in and die, and it would be enough damage.
But he's got the second Anything Can Happen. Now, does that change anything here? If he plays the first one, then his opponent will trade into the board too. This is, again, the problem that if the opponent has any board, the only scenario you can chain Anything Can Happen is your opponent has to address it right back.
Yeah.
So, we're caught in the exact same situation because he can't kill his opponent. 1 damage.
You see, but I don't think he really has to be worried about dying, you know? Because he knows that Anything Can Happen at this stage in the game is just 15 damage. So even if you count the 15 plus all of the damage on the board, that's still only 25 damage.
What's really scary, though, is that Pinpingho controls the board pretty commandingly. So he's going to have to play Sludge Belcher here, I think. The nice thing is, like you said, because Humility, he doesn't actually have to worry about Dr. Boom pushing 7 damage to face every single turn. Otherwise, he'd really be in trouble.
Yeah, now Seogui just once again puts himself in a spot where he's got that board.
Okay.
And
So,
oh,
I wonder if Pinpingho feels comfortable of playing No, I can't. I can't do that. I was thinking because if you know that you're at 24, you can play into the first anything can happen, but you don't play into the second one. If you catch my drift, TJ.
Yeah.
This matchup is incredibly difficult from both sides. And you can't even imagine the stress being as a player right now.
Yeah. Not even just a matchup, just being up on that stage and knowing that so many people are watching you play Murloc Paladin versus Murloc Paladin.
I think Pinpingho might be tempted to use a quality number 2 here.
Yeah.
Although, realistically, passing also isn't the worst option in the world because you know your opponent's limited on damage, and the onus is on your opponent to develop. So I wouldn't be mad at this equality, but I can totally understand why you might feel otherwise. You know, another option is to play equality and then develop a single Murloc that isn't dead. Okay, so he plays equality, so that way he can guarantee it. All right, so this second bluegill means that 4, 4, 4, 12 plus 4 is 9, so 12, 9, 21. 21 damage.
Yeah, 12 plus 9. Because 3 bluegills, 1 merc guy, 1 war leader. The merc guy is with the war leader, base 5 plus the 3 from the bluegills. So that'd be...
No, plus the 4 because the war leader's a merc guy as well.
Okay, yep.
Oh, no, you're right. So it's 20 damage.
Yeah, 20 damage.
Okay. I apologize.
Because the merc guy does not count itself.
That's right. He's doing the same thing we are, except we have 2 minds that are failing at this, and he has 1 person trapped in the chasm of his own mind.
Yeah.
Look
Dan
at
and I
it.
are sitting here.
Isn't it paper? He has to use his fingers.
Yeah,
someone
exactly.
get this man an abacus.
They said pen and paper were banned, but what about alternative means of counting?
Who says Hearthstone doesn't take skill? Look at this, man. He's like, well, I ran out of fingers, and I can't count that high.
You see him take off his shoe and start
like,
counting on his toes.
Hey, Dahuni, come over here. I need to borrow your fingers. Well, you know, Pinpingho right back has actually minions to play. Any minion that you pick up that's not a Murloc is actually pretty good. And you know what? We're getting to the stages where fatigue damage might be relevant as well.
Yeah. And now he doesn't have... Theoretically, he would have enough damage if he could summon all of his Murlocs.
Well,
but he doesn't have room on the board.
This was actually... Oh, wait, that equality. Okay, so he's going to play anything can happen here. And that's really good. So Seogui realizes that this is the moment where his opponent has to respond to this.
Look at Pinpingho's face. He's like, what? And that's just it, because his merc guy's going to be huge. He's getting 2 war leaders. He's like, Pinpingho's like, what the heck's going on? After all of that, we just went through 30 minutes of Murloc Paladin versus Murloc Paladin.
No. I think Pinpingho's... Does he...
That's enough damage, yeah.
Yeah, I think he just was caught off guard because he's like, why did you just do that?
Yeah.
And Seogui is crushed.
Yeah.
Because this is supposed to be his match.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think your experience helps you at all. You know, Pinpingho was so floored by what just happened.
He looked offended.
I mean, we said it. The first person who plays into anything can happen might just lose.
Yeah.
So in this case, Seogui cracked under the pressure, straight up. You know what he's thinking? He's thinking about the rule early in the game. There is a rule to this matchup. In the very beginning, if the board is clear, you can chain 2 anything can happen and actually win at that point because you're the first and second player to play anything can happen. But we're so late into the game that enough Murlocs have died for it to be just a 33 damage swing right back because he got buffed by the war leader, which counted as a 6 minion on his side. So a very anticlimactic but equally hilarious game to wrap up number 2.
Definitely. That was definitely an exciting one. And I wonder what was going through Seogui's mind there. You could see a lot of people going for Pinpingho there, but what a crazy match. And you could tell Pinpingho there at the very end was quite animated. And we sat down with Pinpingho earlier in the week, so let's get to know a little bit more about the notorious PING.
I'm Pinpingho. I'm 28. I'm from Taiwan. For Taiwan's Hearthstone scene, right now we have like several top level players in Taiwan, but there are many of them because most of people couldn't make a living out of it. Many people think that I'm special for playing Shaman, but I don't think that's the important part of me. The reason why I play Shaman is because I want to have my personal style, but it doesn't have to be Shaman. I usually show my style through some kind of special like deck buildings, and it will make people think, wow, this is Pinpingho. Some people play Shaman in the Europe and America Championship, but they suck. They are not Pinpingho style, because there's no imagination, they are not creative. At 2014, people thought I was the best Hearthstone player in Taiwan. Right now, I think it is Tom 60229. But who cares if I'm the best? I'm still going to win the Winter Championship and win BlizzCon. Since BlizzCon, I've been doing nothing other than preparing for this Winter Championship. For every day for me, it's usually like waking up 2 p.m. in the afternoon and maybe eat some breakfast and then play some Hearthstone. Go to eat dinners and I'll go back to playing Hearthstone. And I'll play Hearthstone until I go to bed. I usually take a lot of effort into relaxing before tournaments. I usually practice a lot less. I will make sure that I'm in my best state when I play the tournament. My #1 supporter in this world is me. Winning this tournament will mean a lot to me because I have never really won a major tournament, and it has always been my dream to be a world champion. For people who don't believe that I will win, who cares about it? I'm still going to win. This weekend, when I'm playing my match, please spam 国平得第一 to show your support. To all my opponents this weekend, I have to say sorry because they might have to try again. My name is Pinpingho, and I am here on my road to BlizzCon 2016.
Well, you know what they always say, Dan. Ping ain't easy.
Oh my god.
Hearthstone all day, Hearthstone all night. The life
We're pimping all over the world. Oh,
Indeed.
It's just too close to the actual word, TJ. That's why it's funny. Puns are hilarious. 2-0 is the lead for Pinpingho here, as he is quite possibly just going to sweep Seogui with his Warrior as his last remaining deck. Taking a look at how his style is, he plays a control style, so it wouldn't surprise me to see him play Control Warrior, which would be another attempt at Murloc Paladin if you do read that as Control Warrior, because Murloc Paladin is insanely good against Control Warrior, because you can just non-stop put pressure onto the board with Murlocs, and they have to kill it, and then you just do the uneven waves.
Yep. Indeed. Yeah, Pinpingho, a lot of players don't really know him to be too much of a control player just because they focus so much on Shaman. And he said in his interviews that he sort of wants to make his decks his style. And I asked him a little bit deeper, like, no, really though, like, why aren't you bringing Shaman? It actually is okay. And he said, aggro Shaman is not real Shaman. He said in Taiwan, they call aggro Shaman Rexar because, you know, like similarities to Face Hunter. So he said...
They do.
Yeah, he said that's not real Shaman.
Feels bad, you know, the fact that you even managed to make Shaman a viable deck, and then all of a sudden, no one even calls you Shaman, they just call you Rexar.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. 2-0 is the lead. Pinpingho 1 game away from, well, Seogui looks really defeated right now, so just put him out of his misery, I say.
Yeah, he just looks super stressed. You could tell last game, I'm not sure what was going through his head when he played that, but you can tell instantly, as soon as he saw the Murlocs come onto the field, he just, you know, put his face in his hands and just looked devastated. So, but let's move on to this next match. It is going to be Pinpingho with what looks to be a Control Warrior, pretty much to be expected, and Seogui with a Reno Warlock, if I had to say so.
The reality is, playing perfectly with a Murloc Paladin is extremely difficult, especially in the mirror. So it could be that Seogui just needs a break. to reset from the stress.
Yeah.
He's also saying if this happens to be a patron warrior, this deck would be really effective against it.
Yeah, and since they don't have the, they can't write on these like we did on a piece of paper and count, meticulously count the damage.
Cheated, man. We got pens. The PAs were trying to help us. Doa was doing sign language.
Yeah.
Kibler was probably tweeting something related to the actual answer, and I was peeking at it. It was we had a group effort, and we still had trouble figuring it out. These guys are under a lot of stress. But I'm enjoying every second of the ride here. Pinpingho is going to be playing Control Warrior, and we've seen this matchup a lot, TJ, from both sides here. But I defer to you as the person who is the Control Warrior expert. Warrior is your favorite class.
Yes, it is,
so
Dan.
Let's break down this matchup. Can you tell me who you're leaning towards these days in terms of the Warrior camp or the Warlock camp?
Well, it depends on a few things, and one of the things that it depends on, we can actually see in Seogui's hand right now, and that's the Lord Jiraxis. Lord Jiraxis is a card that not all Arena Warlocks put in, but it's so crucial in the control matchups just because of the infinite waves of Infernals that you can spawn with Jiraxis, and just the consistent damage of the hero power as well. So that's a key card. Another key card that's sort of the counterpart to that is the Harrison Jones, but you sort of find yourself in a situation a lot of times where you can't use Harrison Jones because you'll fatigue out of the matchup. It's really close at this point now that we see what type of Arena Warlock it is. But I still always lean towards the Control Warrior, Dan. Elise can do some crazy things in long matches.
Yeah, that's assuming Pinpingho does play Elise, which I anticipate it actually happening.
It also depends on what type of, the rest of Seogui's Arena Warlock deck, what type of win condition he actually runs. Because there's Fugan and Stalag, which used to be sort of the more common version. And more recently, the combo type style where you run, Emperor Thorsan with either Leroy Jenkins and Arcane Golem, and Face Manipulator with Power Overwhelming, which can lead you to be able to do a lot of bursts in a single turn.
Sure.
It tends to struggle to find that type of win condition, but if you can get Jiraxis down early, start getting Infernals, force a lot of removal out, chip away at the armor, eventually you can win this matchup, but it is close.
Yep, that's a really good point. It really does depend on how you're able to line up your threats.
Yeah.
As the Warlock player, you're the one putting the onus on the Warrior to respond to it. And Pinpingho doesn't happen to have the ideal removal. So, for example, it doesn't have Shield Slam for this Twilight Drake, and it's just going to be able to whack away, which is exactly what Seogui wanted.
Yep.
Because his turn 4 was pretty weak. You don't want to play Defender Vargas onto a board like that. You want to get higher value.
All right, so double Revenge in Gorehowl. If we think back a few weeks ago to the Americas Championship, this looks very similar to the style of deck that a few of those players were running, including Amnesiac, who ended up winning the Americas Championship. This deck looks almost identical to it so far.
Right, it is a callback to a deck that I believe Eversiction has used a lot. He is a player that's decently known amongst the other players in North America.
He beats me in open tournaments way too often, Dan, and his original version actually ran 0 threats, topped out at Justicar Trueheart. And basically, he ran so much removal and would fatigue every matchup, including against decks like Zoo Warlock, because eventually your opponent's going to run out of threats too, and you're just going to have much more health than they do.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You're basically playing a fatigue style. It doesn't usually go to killing your opponent through fatigue, because you do have a win condition, Gromosh, for example, being it. But you're super defensive. So the better way to summarize this deck or archetype is Removal Warrior, where you're just constantly playing super amounts of control until you're able to run your opponent out of threats and then use your own. So Pinpingho has Gorehowl, which he inevitably wants to play the following turn. Now his question is it worth spending cards like Shield Maiden and Sludge Belcher, which inevitably get removed anyways, and then Gorehowl has less value?
Yeah.
These are hard questions to answer, because Pinpingho doesn't want to just lose things for free, but at the same time doesn't want to just pass either.
Especially against Arena. This goes back a little bit, but just in terms of the tournament meta and the beginning of the match, when you're deciding, you'll see a lot of players on the first day when they don't know their opponent's decks. Sometimes will lean towards banning Warlock, because playing against a Warlock that you don't know what it is, or even just playing against Arena Warlock that you don't know what their tech choices are and what type of Arena Warlock it is, can be really daunting because you don't know what you're saving your removal for.
Yeah.
You have all this removal in your hands, but you don't know what it's going to be used on, and you can't plan ahead as well as you would be able to. So it can be pretty scary. And right now, Pinpingho, he just doesn't know, where that Gorehowl is going to go. He doesn't know if there's going to be even any more targets for it. So it can be pretty tough and a pretty daunting task to go up against a Warlock deck that you really have no idea what it is.
Well, I do like the Gorehowl now. You have 2 shield mains to bounce back, even though you're looking at a reasonable amount of power on board. And there's also Zombie Chow, so it feels like you have a lot of health to play with. And if you don't take the time to develop Gorehowl now, you will have an awkward time from this point onwards, so I like it. Now, of course, Seogui would love to draw weapon removal, but he doesn't have that ability. However, he has a really good alternative on turn 7 to play a Dr. Boom. However, if you see Gorehowl and you see 2 Revenges, I think Seogui realizes what kind of list this is. So he might be questioning if he's playing too deep into Brawl already. There are some pretty bad alternatives if a Boombot survives or if a Zombie Chow survives, to which he doesn't get value off Dr. Boom. And so I like this play. He's trying to say, you know what, I don't want to extend too far into a potential Brawl, because that deck usually runs 2.
Yeah, definitely. Probably 90+% of the time runs 2. And really heads up play too, healing up that Twilight Drake to put it right out of range of that now 6 damage Gorehowl instead of healing his face, because really the face damage doesn't matter much at all in this matchup. The only type of burst that the Control Warrior is going to have is the Grom Hellscream, and you're going to end up playing Draxus at some point in the game anyway. Yep. So you're going to go down to 15.
Yeah, the damage isn't irrelevant either. If you look at Pinpingho, like, getting the armor might give him some time to outlast the fatigue stages of the game.
Yeah.
This could realistically go for another 20 minutes. Like, we could just be getting started, TJ.
Yes, especially if it's a reverse sweep, because this series has already gone on as long as all the other series of the day. And it's a 2-0.
So I was thinking about using Bash and Sludge Belcher, but I wasn't sure if he was going to attack. And I guess his logic is he wants the Sludge Belcher to be protected as best as possible.
Yeah.
So that way the Gorehowl can get value. And I think Seogui is just going to play Boom here, because now the board is nowhere near as bad as it was before.
Yeah.
His opponent has to give up something as well.
And so far, we're not seeing any pieces of either of the win conditions that I talked about before, the Fugan or Stalag, or the Burst combination with the Arcane Golem, Powerwhelming, Faceless Manipulator combination. So this seems more like the value Reno.
Sure.
Where you run more overall strong minions, but not a singular win condition.
Yeah, you just have a lot of board presence over
Yeah.
and over and over. Fugan and Stalag, wouldn't be surprised to see him not be playing that. He could be playing Demons straight up. Mal'Ganis, Void Caller, Doomguard, for example, as like a trio package. We've seen them be included. We've even seen like Mountain Giant Reno and just play like just really dominant threats. And if you don't answer this, I'm just going to do 8 damage per turn.
Yeah.
The variation is quite staggering to the point where it's almost impossible just to predict.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's not really any cards that indicate to you which type it is until you see the one that tells you. And there's Reno Jackson.
No cash, you're fired. He is a producer working the backstage, even getting in on the Pinpingho jokes. Seogui, he also does have too many cards, so he can't even like life tap as liberally as he'd like to. This is something that Reno players often struggle with because they're not sure what's the delicate balance of how much they can tap. So you might see Seogui play a little bit even more aggressive on board just because he has too many cards. Does he like part ways with Demon Wrath, for example, just because he needs to tap? Like he can Demon Wrath, Dark Bomb. Okay, well now Demon Wrath got much worse.
he just gave that up.
Right. I mean, I think his thinking was he had only upside to attack into it.
Yeah, well, the Boombot would have died anyway.
Right.
So he was thinking that, hey, if it hits Elise for 2 damage, I can still Demon Wrath. So
he could have hit face and then Demon Wrath.
he could. Yeah, that's true. It would have increased the odds.
The stress, he needs to play something, and I don't think Reno Jackson is it. I would also think he's considering playing Jiraxxus. One of the things that you can also consider is that if you just play Jiraxxus, can you get away with it? We've seen players try it. In fact, the preliminaries we saw an exact player get away with it and win. I believe it was Sky High
Yeah.
that was able to pull it off.
Just slammed it.
right, against the Warlock, which plays really slow.
But then we also saw in the grand finals, Nostrum tried the exact same thing, where he just
And
slammed
just got
Drax and he
destroyed.
lost.
Yep.
So it's
It's a gamble, of course.
It is.
It's a risk.
and he knows that both revenges have been used, if I remember correctly, because we saw two of them earlier. There's none in the hand. And Deathbite wasn't developed, so that'll be the only activator for Grom. So
Sure.
that would have been a relatively safe turn to use it, because I think he would have been still like 3 damage off lethal just with the 4 damage from Grom. So, but you know, playing it safe, really thinking through his turns here, but he definitely looks super stressed.
Yeah, doing some head massages. I've been there, bro. I
Yeah.
definitely can sense the tension coming out here, at least from Seogui's side. It looks like he's going to try to get Demon Wrath value now, play the Shredder. It's fine. It finally allows him to start tapping again, but he missed this opportunity last turn. And, you know, it feels like, you know, and I don't want to predict it too, I don't want to push it too much, but it feels like the wheels are starting to come off the Jet here. Sorry, the wheels coming off the wagon.
Jet! Oh!
Sorry, the wheels are coming off the wagon, and he needs to buy a jet. Because right now, he's in the situation where he's losing tempo to the Warrior, which is going to start developing a little bit more proactively. So now, anything he puts out, Warrior can remove very aggressively, and then there's no real threat to follow it up. This Reno Warlock deck is only good at how many threats you can churn out against a Warrior.
Yeah.
And he's getting like max value out of the Gorehowl with 2 more Death Bites to follow up.
Yeah.
It feels like Seogui's in a pretty awkward position, even though the game is still far from decided.
He's lost board. He does have Twisting Nether, but that's his only board clear. There's an Imp Gang boss as well, which doesn't match up with a Shield Maiden. So not what he wants to see, and having to use that Twisting Nether now means that he gives complete initiative over to Pinpingho, and still doesn't have the best of plays going into next turn. Maybe it'll allow him to save his mid-Draxes.
He's used a lot of his mid-range minions, a Belcher, 2 Shield Maidens. I mean, the reality is, Pinpingho doesn't have much to play after this. So
Yeah, that's true.
I don't mind that play at all. It's a pretty good read, honestly, from Seogui. Pretty underrated play. Even though it feels like, wow, Twisting Nether to kill 1.5 minions after they've killed stuff from you already?
Yeah.
There we go. Now we're talking. Seogui gets the Emperor Thorstein off the top of his deck. That's great with Jiraxis, too, because now you can hero power with it.
One of the strongest plays in the game is a reduced Jiraxis. Being able to play that hero power, getting us pretty much a free 6/6 on the board, as well as that weapon.
Power Overwhelming almost certainly the go-to pick. You have Shadow Flame, so that gives you almost guaranteed board clear based off the way Jiraxis can interact.
Yeah.
Oh, Harrison Jones. Interesting.
But as we talked about, Harrison Jones, using it against a Jiraxis often means, well, sometimes means you discard. Often means you get ahead of your fatigue, even if you're playing against a Warlock that's tapped a lot, because a lot of times you're getting 6, 7 cards. Harrison Jones, so it's a tough play to make when one faced with Jiraxis.
Pinpingho really evaluating how he wants to remove this Emperor Thorstein. I think he doesn't want to part ways with his Execute. Oh, wow. He's using Grom? What do you think about this, TJ?
Now, that's just oozing with value right there. It's not often that you get all the way down to 1 durability with Gorehowl.
Oh yeah, I mean, do you like this attack by Grom sending out here as removal against Emperor Thorstein?
It means like he values Execute over Grom Hellscream in this matchup, which seems odd to me. Because Grom can, it means he's gonna be focusing on like 1 win condition, and that win condition is pretty much gonna be fatigue.
That's exactly what the problem is, though, because now your opponent's played Jiraxis. Maybe he wants him to, so that way he can play Harrison into it.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're going to be playing on borrowed time from this point on. But let's find out what happens here. Pinpingho plays Harrison immediately without playing anything else. He's going to overdraw by a lot.
Oh, wow. Is he going to discard, what was this, 4 cards?
Oh, I would be so sad if he burns the monkey.
There goes!
The monkey!
Goodbye, monkey.
Why? 2 shield slams down the drain. Flush him. What just happened?
He just
I am
slammed
not
the Harrison.
entertained.
Yeah. I'm pissed.
What now?
Oh man, Pinpingho, I think realizes maybe you play a little bit too hastily. Because you first of all, you're like, wow, I have a lot of draws, and then you realize, oh, I have too many cards.
You didn't see the look of satisfaction on Pinpingho's face when he played the Harrison? He knew exactly what he was doing, Dan.
Let's dispel this fiction. That Pinpingho did not know what museum he was going to. He knew exactly which one it was. Well, at least he got full value off his execute.
I can hear what Pinpingho's telling to himself in his head. He's like, okay, establish dominance. Overdraw the monkey.
I mean, he is pressuring with being proactive on the board here, but that's about to change.
Yeah.
The moment that Seogui can build up a reasonable board with his hero power, it's going to be tough. Pinpingho at least has 2 brawls, though. Game is not decided just yet, but that map to the Golden Monkey was so crucial. It's so crucial because it replaces cards like Deathlord, which don't do anything, really, against the pressure of 6/6s. You can replace them with legitimately big threats. Maybe even another Gromish Hellscream, or a way you can end the game in some capacity like that.
So the win conditions are basically out the window now for Pinpingho. He used Grom as removal, so he can't, make a timing play with Grom, especially not after Draxus is played. Even if he had the Grom, he'd have to get through taunts as well, and that map is gone. So the other win condition of just overwhelming the Reno Warlock with legendaries is out of the way too. And he's behind in fatigue.
Yeah,
He's doomed.
This is well, I would say the biggest oh no.
He's doomed.
All right, that's it. I think Pinpingho has to concede here, and that's gonna wrap it up. Definitely not the prettiest game, but you know what? In Seogui's mind, we take those.
Yeah.
We'll take anything we can.
Yeah.
Listen, it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, TJ. A win is a win.
Yeah, but as Pinpingho said, it doesn't matter if you're the best. you're still going to win BlizzCon.
Look, you know what? I think that was a game that just kind of got a little bit too carried away if you're looking at Pinpingho.
Yeah.
One of the really easy things in this matchup, which is already a little bit tougher from the Warlock's point of view, because of the undulating waves of threats, is that you feel like you have to win fast. And in his mind, he's saying, if I can play Grom, maybe there's a situation where I can still win if I force him to play Harrison and draw a lot. But there's a lot of situations, too, where he was valuing certain cards and not valuing other cards and ended up paying a huge price for it. The Brawl ended up not being fortunate, but by then, I still feel like the Warlock was in a great position because he still had Shadow Flame.
Yeah.
He still had both Taunt minions. He still has his access to hero power. And not to mention, he's in the worst-case scenario, if it goes to Fatigue, he still can hero with Reno Jackson and be able to stay alive in that situation. That Warlock game was just super one-sided the moment he decided to part ways with the Grom.
Yeah, and then just exacerbated by the fact that he used the Harrison very hastily. Not even like getting rid of cards out of his hand, because at that point, even something like an Acolyte of Pain.
Sure, which he kept in his hand for a long time.
Yeah, it's completely useless after you get that far in your deck after you play Harrison. So both players now, Pinpingho is going to have to reset. Seogui hopefully has a little bit more confidence after that last win.
I'll take it. In this case, Seogui, it hasn't been exactly the cleanest path to victory, but now he can go to Paladin versus Warrior, which, in my opinion, I think this matchup's actually pretty dang good for the Paladin player.
Yeah, it is. But there are things that you can do as a Warrior player, and they're key cards to look for in this matchup. I've talked about this matchup with a lot of pro players in the Americas scene, including Muzzy, who's has finished top 10 legend like 4 seasons in a row.
Yep.
And he taught me these strategies, a win condition, so to speak, against the Murloc Paladin. And that involves saving your Belchers and saving your Brawls until the very end of the game. And after the first anything can happen is played, you play the first Brawl, you play the first Belcher. Then after the second anything happen is played, you play the second Brawl, you play the second Belcher, and usually they don't have enough damage to push through.
Because you have so much life.
Because you have so much life. There's a lot that happens in between. You sort of need to have Justicar Trueheart in a timely fashion to start building up that armor. You need to not let the board get carried away with small things like tokens, peacekeepers.
Right, which
You
you
know,
do
the Morlocks
have
before they die, yeah.
You do have access to those tools with revenge and weapons.
Yeah.
So I do feel like Pinpingho has some of those tools. However, I think the other side of it could happen too, where if Seogui recognizes that, he can pressure beforehand.
Yeah.
And one of the really annoying things about this matchup is that if you're the warrior player, you have to remove the Murlocs. You have to fire your War Axe down the war leader.
Yeah.
And then that's exactly what they want.
Don't ask why I'm laughing.
Oh, okay. I was, because I felt like I was on the outside of an inside joke, TJ.
An inside joke with just me.
At least you're happy, TJ. You can make yourself laugh. That's what's important. This is a really powerful move from Pinpingho. The fact that he can draw multiple cards is pretty huge. Card draw and control matchups can be game deciding because it just gets you deeper into the deck to be able to decide how much damage you can do to your opponent or how you can remove. So this was a great move from Pinpingho.
You're not too worried about fatiguing this matchup as the warrior player, just because even if you get 3 draws out of both of your Acolytes of Pain and play both your shield blocks, the Murloc Paladin probably is still going to be about even with you on draws. So
definitely,
you're not going to get to a point where you might, but it's rare to get to a point where you lose because you drew too much and because of fatigue. And you need to get to that Justicar True Heart. So the faster you can get there, the better this matchup's going to go for you.
Okay, Seogui just methodically removing, but Pinpingho going to be able to play at least Starseeker here and just start fighting back onto the board. The reason of how good Starseeker can be in this matchup, I'm not sure. Can you think of like if Elite Starseeker is useful outside just the taunt of the Golden Monkey?
I don't think it's good. Just because you... it can be good if you were forced to use your Belchers earlier, but like you said, it's only good because of the taunt of the Monkey. But Belcher actually blocks more damage than Monkey, especially later when anything can happen is played, because it blocks 2 attacks. And those 2 attacks can be like 30 damage with old Merc Eyes, whereas Golden Monkey only blocks 1 attack. So a lot of times you can't afford to play it because you need to hold on to your Belchers and you need to hold on to your Brawl. So basically its function is just, a 3-5 in the early game to fight for board and maybe cycle later on when you draw that Golden Monkey. So it's not that helpful in this matchup in particular.
I believe it. Well, Seogui has 2 Belchers in his deck, which will be helpful to fight off all these small annoying things from the Warrior. But he's not lacking cards like Dr. Boom, which is the real punch of the deck.
Yeah. He is picking up threats, though, and the Paladin hero power is just super strong against, warriors in general, maybe with the exception of Patron Warrior.
What's the timing on the Doomsayer for Paladin this matchup? I was thinking maybe Doomsayer would be good to allow yourself some breathing room of playing like a Belcher or something before it.
And there's just never a super good timing because there's just not good enough threats to try and preempt. You can play before turn 6 to try and get the Shield Maiden, but a lot of times they'll just go ahead and play the Shield Maiden anyway if they were going to, just because they value the armor.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. From Seogi's point of view, he wants to set up the safest turn to play Lay on Hands and then eventually draw into his Murlocs. So this is fine. Getting value off the Peacekeeper while he can, and then saving the Sludge Belcher for after the weapon, because the weapon challenges immediately. So Pinpingho, what is he going to do? If he parts ways with the weapon, he can't really follow up with anything else besides the second Shield Maiden, which is okay, I guess. Yeah. I think you also want to kill the Murloc, because even though killing the Murloc feeds into the anything can happen, it ends up allowing you to buff other Murlocs too.
Yeah. There's also a high priority of, especially from this point on, in using your natural armor up every turn. Because you need to start, once you establish board control, or even just board presence, you need to start building up that life total. Just because, that's part of your win condition in this matchup is getting out of range of the damage from anything can happen, even with Sludge Belchers.
Oh, Seogui plays the Belcher straight into the Shield Maiden. And all of a sudden, Gorehouse looking like an opportunity to get some value here.
Mighty fine. Still want to... Armor total means a lot. as I was pointing out. So,
so you want to play Deathbite and Armor Up instead?
Yeah, and not use the Gore Howl to trade in, because you need to preserve that life. So
It's reasonable, although I guess the question just becomes how do you use Gore Howl later on? But I suppose if you just get the Deathbite swings and use Gore Howl to ride it all the way to the
you can just
bank.
later on you can just equip Gore Howl and use it as like a 7 damage threat later in the game.
Sure, Gore Howl and Gromash.
Yeah.
Well, Pinpingho kind of picked this line. If he wants to equip Gore Howl, he can still shut down a 1-2 slime, but Deathbite seems to be the more preferable option based off the line he took. And that's fine too.
Fitting in those armor ups.
Well, this makes Seogui have an opportunity. Whoa, Old Merc Guy's not bad either. So now he can play Consecration and Merc Guy, clear the board. I'm still waiting for him to play cards like the Lampions though.
Huh.
You're not a big fan of that play, TJ?
It's probably not that big of a deal, but that Shield Maiden would have died to the Whirlwind effect of the Deathbite anyway.
Yeah, the damage to face isn't irrelevant, like you said.
Yeah, just getting that armor off. I mean, there could be a situation where 10 turns down the line, he's 2 damage off of lethal, and it could be because he didn't make the attack.
Sure.
With that old Merc guy, but just small things. I'm trying to think why he would attack into that, and I guess just making sure that the board is clean has some inherent value, but not too much. And now Pinpingho's gonna apply some pressure.
Huh?
Hello.
That is a super aggressive attack. Now Seogui can really just be unafraid of anything. I mean, I guess Pinpingho's idea is, look, he played Peacekeeper. He has to have humility or an equality.
Yeah.
He just happens to be able to have the equality here.
Once again, Pinpingho just going with the weird play to assert dominance.
I mean, in his mind, he says, this match is probably pretty awkward. And,
yeah.
like maybe this is an opportunity for me to be aggressive. But Seogi's going to heal back up to full as if nothing ever happened.
Yeah, and I mean, as I've said, multiple times, just outright killing the Murloc Paladin is not the main win condition. It's just outlasting both Anyphins, is outlasting their damage, and eventually the Murloc Paladin will run out of stuff and die from fatigue because they drew so much. So still no Justicar Trueheart though, and we've been through quite a large portion of the deck, so this is not what you want to see if you're the Control Warrior player. Pinpingho probably a little bit annoyed that he hasn't seen that a bit earlier.
I mean, it's okay because in the end, the warrior. This is a removal warrior, so Grom Hellscream can be considered as removal. So I wouldn't be the most upset if it ends up being the case where he's on the plane saying like, yeah, Grom's just a 8 damage absorb removal and kill off his minions on the board.
Yeah,
but he also didn't use it as removal. That was the thing. He just attacked face with it to try to rush him down. That was the only question mark that I had. I don't have a problem playing Grom there.
He used it to remove some cards from Seogi's hand the next turn.
He used it to remove 10 damage to the face.
Exactly.
Well, that feeling when you play an anti-heal bot for 0 value, it's still okay because Seogui just wants to get the armor count down. Anytime the weapon uses swing and reduce it from the double digits to single digits, you're still feeling pretty good as Seogui.
Yeah. Just applying that pressure where you can. Feels pretty irrelevant just because you know that the Warrior's not going to be applying pressure anytime soon. We saw the card counts a little bit earlier. Now at this point, it's going to be 12 cards for Pinpingho, I believe, and 7 now for Seogui. So,
I mean, Pinpingho is still waiting for a chance to get value off Harrison Jones. He's even considering execute. This is how much he's valuing the armor on his life total. He's willing to part ways with execute. I mean, he's committed to this play.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that threatening of a board, but I mean, in his mind, he really needs it.
yeah, and you really can't afford to use those brawls early on, because you need those brawls for the anything. Because that first anything's played, you play the first brawl, and then the second one's played, you need some way to remove those Murlocs off the board, because you can't use single target removal to get rid of them all. You have to have those 2 brawls So getting further in the deck now is Seogui.
Yep, I think he's missing one more war leader, and that's it. He's also needs to get a second anything can happen. He has to chain them.
Yeah. Well, he's only got like 5 cards left in the deck, so
Maybe even less.
yeah.
Looks
4?
less.
4 cards, yeah. So there's an anything can happen. There's a war leader. And True Silver Champions. 1 True Silver Champion and perhaps something else. I'm not sure if we saw 2 in the match earlier that he played in the Murloc Paladin Mirror.
I would assume it's 2. You're playing a control style deck, so you
Yeah.
definitely need the weapon to hit the board. I think from Seogi's point of view, he doesn't want to even draw too much more. Normally you play like an Acolyte here, but I think he feels like I have to play a little bit slower, not try to draw so fast. Pinpingho, he has a Belcher. And does that mean he's going to play the Belcher? According to TJ, you don't play the Belcher.
You don't.
This would be a complete understanding of how to play this matchup. Ooh, look at Pinpingho. He knows, man. He's onto it.
Smart man.
And he's even got the Harrison ready for the True Silver Champion. Which is pretty big, because then you can finally develop a minion on board.
Yeah. Yeah. You can play the 1 Sludge Belcher when you have the second one, as long as you're confident that your opponent can't remove it and then play anything can happen. So he definitely has a lot of experience with this matchup. I mean, he's playing Control Warrior. He's also playing Murloc Paladin, so he knows what he doesn't want to see from the other side of the matchup. He knows how he loses it as the Murloc Paladin. So
I love it. All right, well, time to put another weapon into the museum. Harrison Jones picking up a Bash, which isn't the most useful. But you know what? He's got so many weapon charges. I think Pinpingho is just going to get to work here. Yeah. Back to the grind.
I just don't think Pinpingho has gained enough armor here. I don't think he's gained enough life to be able to survive the onslaught of Murlocs that is surely to come.
I believe the maximum... I think the maximum damage is a cut below 50 for a full board, assuming you can hit all to the face.
Yeah.
If 2 is interrupted by the Sludge Belcher, how much max damage can you get? Assuming the Paladin gets to choose every single Murloc.
Ooh.
Is it in the 30s?
I just know that I don't really feel safe until I'm at like 90 health.
Okay.
That's a little bit excessive.
90 health, DJ.
Come back to me in about
3 times as much as you start off in the game.
Come back to me in about 12 minutes and I'll have an answer for you, Dan. I'm gonna get working on my math here.
Sure, sure.
12 plus. I'm just kidding. I'm not even gonna do it. Well, Gorehal does
override it.
Yeah, and
he's gonna kill off. Or
quite
he's just gonna hold
conveniently
on
takes out Doomsayer.
That wasn't
Oh, well, there's the
I am
second
a little
anything
bit
can happen.
confused. That is 22 damage. And I think Ho has to brawl and play Belcher.
I still just don't think he has enough, because he also, keep in mind, has to kill the last Murloc that's played. Well, he doesn't have to.
Right.
But I just don't think it's going to be enough. Even though he played it pretty intelligently by holding on to the Belcher, holding on to the Brawl, you still have to gain enough health earlier on.
There's no way he can't get away without playing Belcher here.
He's 100% dead.
Yeah.
He does not. I think he's 100% dead either way.
Yeah, because it feels like if you just hit with the 2 Merc Eyes, he's dead. I think in the scenario where you get 4 war leaders and 3 bluegills, you actually survive. It's unlikely, though.
It's very unlikely.
Because 2 bluegills have to go in, and the last bluegill can't do it. So there is a chance that Seogi's anything can happen can just completely whiff.
Yeah,
and if it ends up having that no Merc Eyes. No Merc Eyes is the key.
Seogi's gonna think about it.
Here we go.
There's no other option.
What?
It happened! It happened!
He didn't get it! Pinpingho!
What the heck?
How did you do that?
What are the odds?
Seogui, this is not your series, brother.
Oh my goodness.
That is a second brawl in hand, too.
The thing is, it's not over yet. Because he still has True Silver Champion that he can tag over 2 turns, but...
Yeah, he's got Death Lord, and he can't get past Death Lord.
Yeah, and he's fatiguing now, so it's only a matter of time. The Bash is going to come out. It's Seogui can't help but shake his head. That's the only outcome of anything could happen. The only one.
Did you believe it, TJ? Seogui can't believe it.
Oh my goodness.
He's going to try and play Choose Over and push, but he's going to realize he's going to get met by the Great Wall of Death Lords. And, you know, to add insult to injury, you know, there was no Justicar True Heart being played this game.
None. None.
You know, Pinpingho definitely didn't have a very proactive hand. He even overrid his own, he was overriding his own Fiery War Axe to get to this point.
Yeah. And two of the
Victory.
Oh, and he concedes, and that's Pinpingho taking the series. What a match!
Pinpingho doesn't even know what to say. He's actually laughing at the face of his opponent. That is emoting IRL, to which there's unfortunately no squelch option.
Yeah.
Seogui just has to sit there and he's not even shaking his hand. He's just sitting there. He's like, what do I do?
At each other from across. What a match, though.
All right,
there
we got
go.
the handshake. I guess the original Pinpingho is the best Pinpingho for today.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, there was no Justicar, not much armor gain.
TJ, don't worry,
really
man.
exciting stuff.
We said plenty during the series. That was a long one. That was our final one. Pinpingho is the last winner. Moving on to play the Japanese player Matsun. Don't forget that Seogui will be playing against Naviut in the lower bracket tomorrow. No one's eliminated, but we'll see what happens in just a little under 20 hours. We have Doa standing by with our winner, Pinpingho from Taiwan.
Hey guys, yep, I'm here with Pinpingho. Man, that was an ordeal. That was a crazy match to win. I mean, obviously you're exhausted. It's the end of the night. How do you feel though? It's got to feel good though to at least get the win.
It feels good. Pretty good right now, but with some pretty lucky moments, and yeah, it feels great to win.
I mean, you talked a lot of trash in your video, right? I mean, there were some big words coming from you coming into this tournament. Were you worried at all during the match?
Not really. It's like, I think I'll win anyway.
Okay, you're going to win anyway. So I've got a question about your Warlock deck choice, because we've seen a lot of Zoolock, we've seen a lot of Arena Lock, but you just brought Handlock. Do you feel like it's a superior way to play Warlock right now?
Not really, but it's like part of my strategy. I don't want to reveal it right now.
Ah, I see. No problem. You don't need to. But part of your strategy I've got, I'm thinking probably didn't involve a Murloc Paladin versus Murloc Paladin game. Like, how in the world do you approach that? Like, your mind turns to mush. Like, what do you think about during that game?
The board control was on his side, like most of the games. Like, it's actually pretty hard for me. And one of the key plays I made is like I play Brugler Warrior to prevent him from playing like a War Leader and kill me next turn. But he actually got Hellbot, and I couldn't actually prevent him from killing me with anything. But he missed lethal. Yeah.
Okay. It was insane, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
So going forward, I mean, do you have any words to your future opponents now? I mean, you should have struck a little bit of fear into their hearts, but you want to strike a little bit more. Here's your chance.
I don't think I need to.
Okay.
I think I'll just crush it.
All right, well, there you go. I mean, there it is from Pinpingho. No more words are necessary. He's apparently just going to crush them. So let's go back to the sidebar where Papa Smithy and Kibler are standing by.
Thanks very much, Doa and Kibler. How do we even follow up what was quite the series? I mean, it clocked in at just over an hour of Hearthstone. It didn't even go all 5 games, and we still went over an hour. First impressions, first reaction.
I mean, that was just a crazy match. Like, there wasn't a single game there that wasn't kind of outrageous in some fashion. So, pretty great way to close out the day.
I mean, every single game went to turn 10. That lets you know what sort of a series we were in for. I mean, there's so many things that we could show you guys. I think the first replay, it's not truly a replay, but it gives you an idea of just what was going on. And it wasn't just the players in this situation. This is everyone on the side as well as we roll this first clip here. And this is just watching Seogui doing this hand math. And it's not just him. Everybody at the sideline, I was seeing Doa, I was seeing you. Everyone's trying to work out the machinations because we saw so much Murloc Paladin.
Yeah, there's so much that can happen in an anything can happen mirror that you need to keep track of so many things, calculating, okay, these are all the Murlocs that have died. This is what each of them do. This is what all of it adds up to. And it can be tough to keep track of.
And, of course, that plays into our first clip here when we're talking about keeping track of Murlocs. And there was catastrophic mistakes on both sides. And that was honestly the big story because we saw a lot of solid Hearthstone. The first match, Demon Handlock versus the Murloc Paladin, was played at a very high level. At the end of the day, the taunt wall was too high. Now we're going into game 2, and we're looking at this play. It's important to note that Seogui had already used both his equalities and was obviously respecting the chip damage. Remember, Pinpingho is playing the Kalento version with more of the mid-range minions, with the shielded mini-bot and stuff. But talk me through what happens
Yeah,
here.
he just ends up, doesn't need to actually get rid of this entire board and just sets up Pinpingho to actually just kill him with his anything can happen on the backswing. He didn't quite calculate things correctly, didn't realize that he was just going to die there, apparently.
I mean, the way I look at it, the one thing he didn't factor in, because remember, his Murlocs didn't die, so you're thinking, okay, I'll be fine. Didn't factor in Old Murkai. Old Murkai getting buffed by the full board of Murlocs was enough to create lethal, and
we saw both these players calculating so much back and forth, and clearly just an absolutely exhausting series. So you can understand how, in the end, after so much calculation, sometimes something just slips up.
And we're going to have another example of that in a second, but you've played a lot of card games, Hearthstone included. Talk to me about fatigue, because it's very late here over in California. It was a very long series. Talk to me about the impacts of fatigue, because it was sin on both sides when we get into the second clip.
I mean, it can be absolutely huge. There's actually traveling in particular, and these players, not only traveled here, played the last match of the day, have played an incredibly long match. It can really take it out of you. Your mental acuity really declines after that period of time, and in particular, when you're fighting jet lag and everything as well, it can be very, very difficult to really stay at the top of your game for that long.
And that's why we'll load into our third replay. And it's important to show this just because the fatigue wasn't just on one side. Seogui, by this game 3, was already very visibly frustrated, of course, after that misplay. But we're getting into game 3, and then it's clearly not just all about Seogui when it comes to the fatigue.
Well, this is an interesting situation in a couple accounts. Seogui actually very heads up doesn't attack with his Jiraxis weapon because it means that a Harrison Jones from Pinpingho will further overdraw him. And Pinpingho, it seems, doesn't quite calculate the fact that, playing this Harrison Jones is going to draw 8 cards and burns so many key cards from his deck. He didn't even play any cards from his hand prior to that. He could have at least played something from his hand so he would overdraw less.
Yep.
And it was possible he didn't actually even need to play Harrison Jones at that stage either. Perhaps wait, see if he does choose to attack with the weapon. So it definitely ended up burning a lot of the key cards, those shield slams, the map to the golden monkey, which I always wanted to see a monkey. So sad the only possible monkey we saw today ended up getting burned.
It was such a high armor total that the shield slams would have definitely been live. He had playable cards. I think he had 5 cards in hand, and then, of course, drew 8, so had the 3 overdraw. But he had access to using his weapon. He could have played one of the taunt minions. So, again, you have to say fatigue is the big story because, again, swaths of this hour, you'd say at least 55 minutes of the hour, were very high-level Hearthstone in some of the most difficult and mechanically intensive matches that are possible.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of really calculated plays from both players throughout most of the match, and it seemed, that the fatigue and the length of the match with so many control matches as well really just got to them.
I mean, the meta, that's why we saw, just double Murloc Paladin means that we're going to see the long games, both of them hunting control decks. So many control decks on the field.
I do have to say that it's incredible that we've seen nothing but Murloc Paladin decks in this tournament. Not a single mysterious challenger to be seen.
I mean, one Murloc Paladin before this week, a little bit of secret, a mid-range, an aggro, and now only Murloc Paladin.
Yeah, really interesting to see. Who am I? Well, nowhere, apparently.
Just as a final question, is that just a reality of, we all watched the finals from other regions. All these players, barring maybe UCCU, were touted as control players, and then Murloc Paladin sort of seen as this paragon of taking down control decks.
Yeah, I think it is a matter of just a different metagame that these players are expecting. If you're expecting a large number of other control decks, a deck like Murloc Paladin is a very good foil to those strategies, whereas something like Seeker Paladin, something like Midrange Paladin might not match up quite as well.
After a long series, Pinpingho takes it down. He will be in the upper bracket tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us, guys, and let's look at some highlights as we wrap up the broadcast.
Well, Dan, day one of the Asia Pacific Winter Championship is behind us, and what a day it was. Filled with Murlocs and tank up. Been great.
Yeah, you know, I'm really pleasantly surprised again. Not to rehash too much more, but I'm glad that the Asian metagame you can see has a clear difference than what we've seen in Americas as well as Europe.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the brackets for the day, starting with Group A. Tomorrow we'll start it off, I think, with the elimination matches. So that's going to be Staz and UCCU, who both fell down in their first matches. And, of course, Handsome Guy and Dao Huni are going to be fighting out for that winner spot to be first in their group, moving on to the playoff stage on Sunday.
That's right. Korea's guaranteed a top 4 berth. Really nice job from them in Group A. In Group B, we have Matsun from Japan and Pinpingho from Taiwan being able to move on to the winner's match. Group B, the lower match will be played by Naviut from Australia, and then Seogui, the lone Korean who didn't win his match today. But he has another chance tomorrow to go through all the way. And it'd be a cool story to see if he ends up going all the way to win the entire championship despite starting off a little bit rocky.
Yeah, tomorrow should be a great day. So let's take a look at what we are going to see for tomorrow. And I believe I said earlier we are going to start. Oh, we're going to start off over in the winners bracket matches where we're going to see Handsome Guy and Dao Huni and Matsun versus Pinpingho, and then it's winner go home for the players on the lower side of the bracket for Staz, UCCU, Naviut, and Seogui. Lots on the line for them in their matches tomorrow. So at the end of tomorrow, we will be left with only 6 players competing for that spot at the World Championship.
That's right. So pretty much the same exact thing as you guys have been watching the previous weeks, but I think we've already conceded that we have a great collection, not only of decks, but also some personalities. I love getting to know these players a little bit more, from the father who's wearing his daughter's shirt they made to give him the esports power, all the way to Pinpingho, who's just basically styling on people in the most awesome way possible. I really love what we have in store. I can't wait for tomorrow, TJ.
Yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. I can't wait for the rest of the weekend as well. And keep in mind, we will be revealing that Whispers of the Old God card at the end of the weekend. So thanks, everybody, watching. We will be returning tomorrow, same time, same place. So from everybody here at the Hearthstone Championship Tour broadcast, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.